Hey guys, welcome back to SourceFedNERD! Yay!
Oh, we clapped for ourselves.
Oops, it's early in the morning. Today for SourceFedNERD, we want to do a little special something. Since we're getting close to Halloween, spoopy month.
We love spoopy stuff.
Spoops.
We wanted to go see a very spoopy movie, Blair Witch, and then review it for you guys. So, for people who don't know anything about this movie, let's do a quick synopsis. It's been 20 years since James's sister and her two friends vanished into the Black Hills Forest in Maryland while researching the legend of the Blair Witch, leaving a trail of theories and suspicions in their wake. James and his friends Peter, Ashley, and the film student Lisa venture into the same woods, each with a camera to uncover the mysteries surrounding their disappearance. Spoopy. To kick this off, we're going to do a 5-minute spoiler-free review of the film. So those of you who want to go out and see it, but you haven't yet, but you still want to know what we think, we'll give that to you. But then after that, we're going to do a little spoiler-full
Oh, we're gonna ruin everything.
review. We're going to ruin
I got
this
the
movie
script
for
loaded
you.
up right
Yeah,
here.
we're going to go beat by beat
yeah.
in 10 minutes,
Ah,
roughly.
the woods.
So to kick it off, what did you guys think of this movie, spoiler-free, kicking off with Whitney? What did you think?
Loved it.
Loved it.
I thought it was great.
What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good, and then at the end, I was like, "Oh, this is so much better than I thought it was gonna be."
Very cool.
Like a very rare thing where a movie, like right before it ends, is like, "Hey, I'm suddenly way better."
I, like me, like when you get to know me in the beginning, it's pretty rough,
Near-
but by the
near
end,
the
you're
end
like,
before you die.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, he's actually
Right.
pretty
In his
good.
last
And
10
then
minutes.
it's over. I'd say I love this movie. I also had a nice Hefeweizen, it's a beer, before we went into the movie, and I think that heightened everything. But regardless, I love this movie. I did not enjoy the first movie, and I
Did it
never.
make you sick?
It made me sick, and I watched it on a TV about this big, and I was like 10 feet back from it, so it's like, I don't know why that would make me feel sick, but it did, and it's the only found footage movie to make me feel that way. But I loved the characters in this movie. I loved how they were built out, and they were full and rich. I loved the interactions with each other, and especially when things got spoopy, I got rightfully spooked.
Yeah.
What are you guys?
It's true. I think that they had a big challenge right off the bat because it's such a, it's a monumental found footage movie, and they also had a lot of canon that they needed to include without it seeming too much like a one-trick pony. And so what I really appreciated about it was that they were able to take some of that canon, like the rocks and the twigs and what have you, and sort of make a little bit more lore surrounding it and make it do more cool stuff. And so I think that it was a really smooth transition between the first one and the second one, ignoring completely the sequel to Blair Witch. What's it called?
Book of Shadows.
Blair Witch 2,
Man,
Book
what
of
a
Shadows.
shit.
And Adam Wingard actually made a joke during an interview. He said, we thought about the title, Blair Witch 3, Book of Shadows 2. Like, and that would have been so
Guys,
funny.
do yourself a favor and watch the Book of Shadows trailer.
Just the
Yes.
trailer.
Yeah, just watch the trailer. We'll pause this video. We'll wait.
We'll wait.
Come back.
I think
What
that we
was
should-
that?
Yeah.
Did you see the owl?
It's real rough. And it's
Owls
not...
and abs. I think we should watch that movie for real.
Oh, for
though.
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
we'll watch all three. That way we
Yes.
know the whole story of the Blair Witch. But there were, I liked, like you were saying, that this movie felt similar to the first one when it comes to pacing, but they explored it more. They stretched
Yeah.
things out, and like things might seem familiar, but they definitely, at least Adam liked to mess with you.
Yeah.
How about you?
But I'll piggyback on what Whitney was saying with the adding to the lore. Like, that's often a tricky thing to do, and you're like, oh, you don't have to explain that. But they did it in a way where it was like really subtle, said really quickly, and then kind of paid off a little bit later in the movie. But again, I can't get over like the end of this thing. So
Oh
the
my God,
first
yeah.
2 acts of it, I'll say, if you didn't like Blair Witch, you probably won't like the
That's
first 2
something-
acts of this movie.
Yeah.
But although the only difference is in this one, it is more of a movie about being hunted in the woods
Yeah.
rather than being lost in the woods.
Yeah.
Which I think the first one is kind of, it has a tension that builds up because they just can't. I mean, imagine being lost in the woods. That's a movie premise, right?
You know what?
Starring Liam Neeson.
I feel like for it to be, a super modern horror movie, most movies would have taken the third act right off the bat and just had it be that the whole time. And we're so spoiled now with horror movies that they just jump right into the scary stuff and they don't give it any time to marinate in our brains.
No, we saw it with another person who found the movie boring, and this movie right now is kind of being
got mixed
divided.
reviews.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mixed reviews, which I don't think that's completely fair. But the original Blair Witch and this are similar in the way that it's a slow burn. And once you get to the end, though, it
goes.
things
But
go
it's like
crazy.
a slow
Yeah.
burn into like, instead of like a sparkler, into like a nuke. Or
Yeah,
whatever. 'Cause, like,
yeah.
The end is I mean, we don't mean the end like the last shot. Like in the original one, it's the
act.
last shot.
Yeah.
In this one, it's the last act of the movie. So it's like 20, 30 minutes long. It takes off, and like Whitney was just saying, where normally that is spread out throughout the movie, because it's not, because the movie is a little bit of a slow burn leading up to it. It is the most jam-packed, relentless third act I've seen definitely all year.
Oh, it
where I'm
hits
just
you
like,
hard.
Yeah.
oh my god, it does not stop. I wrote down the words relentless, 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 nonstop, and then other synonyms for relentless. Like
Nice.
it is just, you're just like, okay, please take a break in here.
Yeah.
It just
No.
gets like worse and worse and worse.
Because that's how their movies are supposed to be. Like especially Blair Witch movies. I've never seen Book of Shadows, and I feel like my life's worse because I haven't seen that movie. But
I feel like I would rather, I don't know about you guys, but I would rather see a movie that is a slow burn in the first 2 acts and then is relentless and lets you not like have any room to breathe. I'd rather have that than a movie that just like doles its scares out throughout the whole movie.
it's
you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I like both. I like it. I mean, we talk about It Follows a bit much on this channel apparently, but it does have that like you know when you're tightening a belt and you like want to prove to yourself that you're still on the fourth hole or whatever, and so you're like, I can do one more, and then you pull it. Like that's how that movie felt, where it was like, and a little more tense,
Which
and
one?
a little more
This
tense.
one?
It Follows,
It Follows,
and a little
okay.
more tense, and it kept like just ratcheting it, and you're like, oh, can you get any tighter? And then at the end, it still has all the pull stuff, which is like also crazy. I feel like this movie could have had a little bit more of like ratcheting, so that our friend
Like
who
a
watched
more
it wouldn't have been bored.
like an evenly paced suspense.
I don't want to imply even like means like squish it out of the end and put it into the rest. I mean like keep the end, don't touch that, and then just add like just a little bit more ratcheting up of the tension as we went. The first movie, I'll say, I think has more tension in the first 2 acts.
No, because you made a good point. It's a lost movie. In this one, you're not really worried about being lost. It's more of an escape from being
Yeah,
hunted.
in fact, they
Yeah.
constantly. Well, this isn't a spoiler. They bring GPS with them because they have technology. So whether or not they still can get lost, it's a little bit less of an issue about being lost.
I thought the way they handled technology was really, really interesting.
Agreed.
I love when when they modernize stuff. I mean, this is because I'm a tech nerd, not a
course.
film nerd on this. I love when technology gets adapted and changed. So the new Poltergeist movie had a lot of like updates to it because it's like, oh, now we have screens all around us, and Poltergeist made us for your screens. I love all the Paranormal Activity movies, like all the new cameras that they get. I'm a big fan of technology.
So overall, we enjoyed this movie. I'd say we all recommend that you go see it. I don't think
Under the right conditions.
Under the right conditions.
One Hefeweizen.
Yeah, just one little
Yeah.
beer, and it'll
And
make
then
everything
dark
a lot
theater.
scarier. But go with your friends. Definitely don't go by yourself because maybe the pacing of the movie might throw you off. But we highly recommend it. Now we're gonna head.
Go with your friends, because if you go by yourself, you get too spooked, and you'll never leave the theater.
I did that with Conjuring
Official
2,
warning.
and sleeping was really hard after that.
I had
But,
nightmares after this movie related to the crew. We'll go into that in the
Really?
spoilers.
We'll get into that in just a second. But that's our spoiler free. Go see it. Tune out now if you don't want spoilers. And here we go. Love this movie. All right. Now going into it, what did you guys like about this movie? I personally liked when it came to building out the lore. I liked the time manipulation because in the other ones, there was like a day to night, and like you could just feel that like days were dragging on because she's lost, and the longer that she's out here, the worse it's gonna get. But with this, it's just pitch black. They don't have anywhere else to go. They can't see anything.
And when that couple comes back for the first
So great.
time, they're like, "Oh my God, it's been 5 days." They're all dirty, and she's like, "Do you have any food?" It's so cool.
Yeah,
There's so
just
many
adding a
moments-
whole new layer of
Yeah.
powers to the witch of just like, oh, and I'm a time wizard. Like,
Yeah.
but that was like amazing. It's just, it was. I want to talk about it a little bit more later, but like. It's really hard for horror movies to find like a new thing to scare you with, and just to make you like not trust daylight and what they pull out their phone at one point and they're like, "This is impossible. This alarm is going off, but the sun hasn't come up," and just these like unsettling disconnects. I'm a big fan of new ways to
Agreed.
do
There were
that.
so many cool moments.
There
like,
were.
I remember I was scared the whole time watching it, but I was like, "Dang, this is really cool." Like the voodoo doll.
I wanted to
was
bring that up.
So cool
Oh,
and such
yeah,
a
yeah.
crazy way to wrap that into the first movie is like, oh, that's what those are.
No, I did want to make a point because the loonies, the crazy people, they're probably one of my favorite parts of this movie. Even though that I could see why they'd be annoying to some people, but they are the locals. They're the ones that know this lore. They're the ones that still believe, and they're coming along with them, and they want more people to believe them, to believe in it again. So them making fake voodoo dolls to make them fall for it, and then getting lost for 5 days, and also the twist where her blue hair is tied around a voodoo, one of the dolls, and you're like, oh shit, they're not just like something to be scary, like they are all
They serve a
based.
purpose.
Oh, they serve a
Yeah.
purpose.
And how'd she get her hair?
How'd she get her
Also.
hair? I don't know. She was gone for what we saw as hours, but for her, she could have been gone for a week.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
don't know how long they were out there.
Yeah, I have a down. I have like I'm still gushing about the last sequence,
Oh my
specifically also the tunnel
The
sequence.
The tunnel.
Dude, that
Uh,
was one thing.
It's
Sorry,
a
you go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna. It's quick. It's just that's a whole horror movie unto itself.
Yeah.
The tunnel part.
Yeah, it's the descent. That is the
Yeah.
entire premise of the descent. Because in this movie, you deal with a lot of different aspects of horror movies, especially when it came to the girl who cut her foot and had something growing inside of her.
Yeah,
and
what
like
was that?
the
Which I
use-
wish had paid off.
I wish it did, but also since it's trying to be a true found footage movie, similar to
Not
Clover.
everything will come back.
Yeah, exactly. So, like Cloverfield, you're not gonna get answers in that movie.
Yeah.
Like there's just gonna be a monster coming, and you're just gonna see someone experiencing it. So I'm okay that there weren't answers all the time. But one fun fact, because I was researching this morning, most every effect in this movie, like even like the craziest special effect you can think of, was practical. Even the witch.
What?
The witch
Oh,
was
wow,
the
that's
witch.
great.
The witch was
So
practical.
the character design on the witch
Whoa.
was terrifying, great. It reminded me a bit of Slender.
Yeah.
But it also, which is like a spider-esque thing. So even
So
just
spooky. Her
art-
long limbs.
Yeah,
long limbs.
I think legitimately that speaks to a biological thing, like an instinctual thing, where so insects that look a certain way, you instinctually like babies would be scared of them because you know like that's probably poisonous. So she has that kind of like spider-esque.
like
look to
praying
her.
mantis type.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But they also connect it to the stones of being left behind, how those have been stretching her out.
Yeah, yeah. So
That was interesting.
we learned the lore
Yeah.
of the witch that when she was killed back in the 1700s, roughly, they tied her up in a tree and then tied rocks to all of her limbs and left her to hang. So eventually, like her limbs were getting stretched out.
Died of
So-
exposure.
Yeah. So when they went out and looked for her again, she's gone. So we just assumed that she now rules these woods and has full control over them with her long limbs.
Yeah, she's all Stretch Armstrong-y. I
Mm.
gotta say, I feel like the third act did this the best. It's very hard for me when I watch found footage movies to get the feeling that they try to capture, which is that you're there with them. And I feel like that's something the third act did so well with the tunnel, and especially with her using the camera to walk backwards. That was,
Yeah.
like, one
So
of the
yeah,
most
I have
tense
that down as
moments.
like a thing. I don't remember where I wrote it, but something about how that was probably the most original feeling moment of just the interactions with monsters. There's only so many tropes that you can do, and like ways like the monster takes over your body, or the monsters in mirrors, or like, there's only so many ways to do it. This movie had a pretty new one where they played what I like to call if this then what then that. So they invent a rule. Okay, if this is the rule, you can't look at the Blair Witch or she kills you. If you see her, she kills you. It's like, okay, then does that mean that if you see her through the lens of a camera,
Usually
it
it doesn't count. That-
Yeah,
most
and that's what's cool.
lore,
So
yeah.
they do it through the lens of the camera, and they're like, okay, so if you could do that, then how do you do? Oh, if you walk backwards toward the Blair Witch, then you won't see her, but you can see her through the camera, and it creates maybe the most, absolutely the most tense moment in the third act,
Yeah.
where she is walking backward toward the Blair Witch and can see her in the camera, and that is very new. I haven't
and then
seen
she
that
gets
before.
tricked.
She gets
Can you,
tricked,
like,
but
I
also
don't
it's the
believe it.
way they handle the trick. Is that in this movie, the witch can speak to you directly, and no one else can hear it. So when the final main guy and girl are talking to each other, for some reason the guy's talking to somebody, and they're staying right
who are
next.
you
They're
talking
this
to?
close, like this close to each other, and he's talking to somebody and realizes it clicks,
right.
and so he gets ripped, and then she falls for it again, which is disappointing that she fell for it. But at the
Right.
same time, it's supernatural, so you can't really judge a person for how they react in a supernatural
right.
situation.
Really quick there too. Another reason that the third act jumps the whole movie score up for me, a whole like letter grade, is it goes back and it has this moment in the mirror where you realize that the entire movie was like set up by the witch. She actually is the screenwriter of the film.
Yeah.
She like
Oh, that
has
was
like
such a cool
orchestrated this
moment.
thing, and it makes you revisit the whole first 2/3 in your head and like, holy crap, everything's been designed for this moment. So it again made that first piece
You have to
better.
pay
It's so
attention to this movie
cool.
because a lot of things are called upon from either the first movie, which you should maybe have a general idea of what that
Definitely
is,
have,
but
yeah.
also like throughout the movie, you're going to revisit things over and over again. And the lightning tree that they visit in the very beginning, it's just like it blows your fucking mind because it's like no, she like can warp reality or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I loved this movie, but I want to move down into, if you guys are cool with it, what we didn't like.
Yeah.
What we didn't like, and I got to start off with why the hell did why'd the black guy die first? Like, for
I know.
real? Like, for
We've
real?
come full circle
Yeah.
into
Both
the black guy dies
people
first.
die first. Why? For why?
Yeah, I mean,
We
it's the
do
same
see
problem.
him-
He's not our lead, right? Like, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I
Yeah.
just mean like, so minorities aren't typically cast as leads, and you get rid of the side characters.
Why didn't they kill the crazy people first? I know why they came back around because like it was a nice touch of having the
Yeah.
crazy guy being like manipulated by the witch in the
Yeah.
basement.
Right.
But it's like he could have died first, and if you saw Pete being manipulated, that would almost mean more because he didn't
Yes.
believe, and now he's like
So
trapped
you're
forever.
touching on the thing I didn't like. I like the movie overall a lot. I love the moment when they come back, the people who have gotten lost, and they say, "How long have you been missing?" They're like, "Well, since this morning." And they're like, "It's been 5 or 6 days for us." I love that time warp. I love that. Oh, he says it's a trick. These people are an illusion, where he doesn't believe that they're real,
Yeah.
even though they are real. I wish it hadn't been our characters that we lost and didn't talk to. I wish that happened in between our main characters.
Yeah.
Just losing perception of reality and like, I can't trust you anymore. And then like having to fight your friend because you don't know if they're a monster or your friend.
What about this? What if you, like, if there was an illusion, or maybe just time passed differently for different people? Like, if
Yes,
if
yeah.
Pete went out for firewood and everyone else is back at camp, and he leaves and he's like, "Shit, I forgot something." He goes back to camp and it's already nighttime and they've already started a fire. They're like,
They're like,
"Where
"Why
have
were
you
you gone
been?"
for so long?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
they
would
compare
like that.
footage, and
And
they're
then they
like,
wouldn't trust him anymore too, because
Yeah.
they'd be like, he's lying or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I would like
Yeah.
that, but I feel like I got so burnt out. I watched the OG Blair Witch before we saw it last night, and I got so burnt out on them fighting all the time that I was kind of like, maybe wouldn't have wanted to see that. I do wish that they would have delved more into like the time warping and the reality bending, because that's cool as hell. You know what? I really wanted to see more of whatever was in Ashley's foot. It was
Ugh.
just such a creepy moment with the pus. It's like
Ugh.
such a like gross body thing. But at the same time, like I would have loved to have it be explored, but also like you guys said, it's a open-ended found footage movie.
footage,
You don't
yeah.
need every question answered, but I just wanted more of it. I would have watched like another 45 minutes of that movie
Agreed.
for sure.
From the middle of the second half, if they just extended that a little bit, and the third act, but by adding more to it
Yeah.
somehow. But yeah, I agree. If there was a little bit more there.
Yeah, it's a full movie smashed into the third act. Real quick, can we just say, do you prefer the original one or this one?
This one for sure.
This
Yeah.
one?
Yes.
This one?
Mhm. It's
I-
a better movie. I
would
feel.
say it depends on whether or not you have to give credit to the first one for basically inventing the found footage horror genre.
That's fair.
If you give it credit for
Definitely,
that,
yeah.
then it's like, well, then that one changed the horror filmmaking for 20 years. If you make them equal, this one to me takes what that first one did and keeps freaking going.
And maybe
Yeah.
did it better. I
It's-
think
I
it
think
did
it's
some
at
things
least-
better.
Well, we've also
for
learned a lot
the new
about it.
generation, I think for moviegoers now, this is a better movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, it was groundbreaking back then, so maybe that's why it, people loved it so much. But
Mm-hmm.
now, if you just look at the two of them objectively, this one's a better movie for me, hands down.
And cinematographers have since learned how to not make you throw up from shaky cam.
Yes, that is
Yes.
the only movie, like I said, that makes me feel sick. So this was like nice. Also, I thought it was going to be shot like a horror movie, not like a found footage movie.
Oh,
But once it started getting in there, I liked the use of the headsets. I liked the uses of the drone. Like, there's a lot of things that
Love the
made it
drone.
fun. The drone. Also, when they go up there, they're like, "Wait, where'd all the roads go? Where it is? Like, why is
Yeah,
it
yeah,
endless?"
yeah.
Like, I was like, "Oh my god!" If I saw that, like the one thing that's supposed to be like the
Right.
saving grace, it's like God's eye. It's supposed to be able to see above
Yeah.
everything else. It doesn't work. Oh my god, it's so cool. Really quick, last thing I want to know: favorite moments. What was like a favorite moment or two? Specifically, when the snap of the voodoo doll, like
Yeah.
that one just that messed with me, and also when the other black character, the woman, like she pulled it out of her leg. I'm like, she's gonna make it if she's able to pull that thing out of her leg. She's climbing up to get the drone, and as soon as she falls, or she was like hit by the witch or something, and immediately she's dragged away.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the quickness of hits the ground, dragged away. Like
Because when
That's in
she
the
hits
trailer,
the
too, I
ground,
think.
she was already like injured and sick, and like she could have very easily just fallen off. But the fact that she was dragged away immediately was like, oh, that's the witch.
Yeah.
That's her doing her thing. I feel like we already covered all my favorites of the
Yeah.
tunnel, the walking backwards, the gross body stuff, the kids coming back, especially the second time when he's got a beard.
Yeah.
It's like, how much
Yes.
time has passed? I loved it.
16 years. We did talk about my favorite moment. It is the walking backward moment, but I think it's worth even talking about a little more. I want you as an audience and you guys too to just picture this. You know, when you're in your, I mean, I still get scared if I'm alone in my room and it's dark and a shadow of your coat rack. Why do you have that? It's 2016.
Yeah,
in
of course.
LA, but your coat rack
Your
kind of looks
Victorian
like a
coat
person
rack?
or whatever. Yeah. And then, or, I mean, I have creepy stories that I'll tell sometime of like, there's something, and I actually have, I don't mean to cut myself off, I have a story where there was something in my room, I was seeing it, and it turned out to be real, and there were
What?
people in my room, there were 2 men, and it's a whole story that I'll tell some other time.
That's for the spooky
But,
podcast.
yeah, but so think about that fear that you have that you see something, combine that fear of seeing the thing, and you want to go into the covers, but you're seeing it, with the fear that there's something right behind you, right? Now, combine those where you see the thing and it's right behind you, and you start slowly marching closer to it.
Also, the kind of
Ugh.
the fear of limited view of that,
Yeah.
like the only thing you're able to see is this tiny screen. It's kind of like when people peer through a keyhole. Like this is all
Oh,
you're gonna
God.
get, and like that outside the bounds of whatever your camera can see, it's probably there. Or it could just run in front of you really quick, and you'll see it because like
Yeah.
there's no way you will not look up at the witch as it
Yeah.
comes at you.
Man.
But also, I wanted to give a shout out to Adam Wingard's writing because this movie was
Simon's.
very. It was Simon.
Simon wrote it. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
And Adam's directing.
Directed.
Yeah.
Oh, got
And did the
confused.
music, I think?
Adam did some of the
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the humor a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
It was very well crafted, especially when you have the group go into the house in the very beginning, and there's a Confederate flag on the
Oh,
wall,
yeah.
and you're like,
That just exchange of glances.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
because
it was so funny.
from then on, the conflict between these two people is very clear.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
easy because one, they're crazy, and also they're racist. So
Yeah.
it's like, why are we listening to you in the first place?
What state is this?
This is Maryland. This is
Maryland.
Maryland.
Huh.
Yeah. But guys, I super enjoyed this movie. Any final thoughts for people who want to go see it or who have seen it? Anything that any takeaways?
I hope you still go see it
Yeah.
even after you're watching this.
Yeah, well, you
We're
probably
into
hopefully
all
have
three.
seen it if you're listening to the spoiler version.
Yeah.
If you haven't though, it's still worth watching because the tension does ratchet up nicely. This is true for all horror movies. Give yourself the right conditions. Don't let us build it up for you and then just go watch it in the middle of the day during a lunch break. Go to at night with your friends that get scream a lot and squeeze your hand or whatever. Go to a neighborhood where
Maybe a spooky.
yeah, where you're scared to even
Watch it in
drive
the
in there.
woods.
Yeah,
There was a point when I was like,
get drunk.
Yeah.
I started turning around in the theater. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do what's happening in this movie because usually at home I'll pause and I'll go to the bathroom and I'll come back and I'm like, and I'm ready to handle this
Oh,
again. But in this
man.
movie you can't. You just have to sit there and
It
watch.
makes it so much more fun seeing it with horror fans and people who scare easy because it's like
Yeah.
if you go into it like a critical being like, oh, I'm not gonna get scared, this is dumb, then you're not gonna get scared, but like enjoy it.
Yeah, I
you know?
actually loosen up my body when I'm watching it. I'm like, all right, time to freak out. Because if you
freak
lock in
out.
too much, you accidentally don't do anything.
Yeah,
But I
love
want to
it.
Gotta get loosey
get
goosey.
shake. Yeah.
But guys, let us know your thoughts on the Blair Witch, especially the original one and the newest one in the comments down below, and tweet at us at tweet
Tweet
At
me.
Tweet me
more.
more.
At Fimo, at Sam Basher. Go ahead and tweet us your thoughts. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like this video, comment down below if you want more movie reviews and such, and subscribe
Or
to the channel.
horror-related stuff.
Horror
And
related
horror-related things.
stuff.
We're getting into October. Really excited. Want to try some stuff out. But thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Welcome back to SourceFedNERD. Hey, look, Whitney's back. Yay!
Oh. What? What was that?
Probably has something to do with that weird thing that happened a few weeks ago. That should be paying off soon.